weekend. This is our 13th year officially with the Potter Tioga Maple Association. So we're going to go back in time to the time where we didn't have an official Maple Weekend. And several of us were doing an open house in the spring of the year just to make a better awareness and a good marketing effort to get people to come out to see how maple syrup's made. Going back that far, it started with interest in the association. We had people doing it. We had up in New York State, they already had a organized effort doing maple weekends. So we kind of checked it out. We went to a few sugar houses and we gathered information, and 13 years ago, the Potter Tioga Association officially had our first Maple Open House Weekend.
Our weekend has been really great. This is our 13th year with the Maple Weekend, and every year it has really grown. We meet so many new people, so many from out of the country even, that come just to visit and watch us make maple syrup. Local people are still finding out that they have these sugar houses that are open on the weekend, so it's great for people away from our county and also people who live right here.
Yesterday we had a real treat. We had the Secretary of Agriculture, Russell Redding, here and his entourage. They came to our sugar house because they wanted to come to see the Best of Show syrup winning ribbon on our sugar house wall. So at the 2017 Farm Show, Hamilton's Maple Products won Best of Show syrup at the Farm Show. And here's our ribbon to prove it. Mr. Redding didn't believe that. He was actually at the Farm Show, but so he had to come and check it out. So yesterday they were here and we took them down, and Mr. Redding actually was able to tap a maple tree. I'm not sure, but maybe it's the first time he's ever done that, but it certainly won't be the last. I think we got him hooked. Along with him, we had the Director of Marketing from Pennsylvania. We let them also participate in the tree tapping ceremony. Every year, our state representative, Martin Causer, sponsors a bill in the House of Representatives designating the week of our tour as Maple Producers Week in Pennsylvania. And the proclamation is here to my left that he presented, whereas stating the maple industry in Pennsylvania is an important industry. Because of that, he wanted to give us a proclamation designating the importance of Maple Producers Week in Pennsylvania to create awareness and better marketing of our maple products. Along with that, we had local commissioners, the Potter County Commissioners. We had two of those out yesterday. They were very glad that they were invited to our facility. We're very happy that we were able to participate in the open house weekend. There are 15 other sugar houses that are on the tour in Potter and Tioga counties. So if you ever get the opportunity to participate in a tour, it's well worth your while to see how maple syrup is made. Everybody does the same thing in a different way, and the end result is pure maple syrup from the maple tree.
I'm Mike Eldridge with Sunrise Maple. We're out here in our sugar bush looking at the way that we make syrup here. We're going to start out with the gathering process. Mid-February you'll start withdrawing sap from the trees. The last 2 years we've actually started around the 10th of January, so the season's definitely, the time frame's changing on us now. So anymore, January we start drilling holes and preparing for the season itself. You'll see the tree in behind us with the blue tubing that goes in. It's a 5/16 spout, which that's what we would draw the sap from. Comes into our gathering lines that you can see right behind me here. We run all vacuum systems. Try to maintain a 27-inch vacuum on all of our tap holes. From the main lines, we come into what we call our pump houses. Everything that we have runs off vacuum. So what happens is we have a 5-horse vacuum pump here, which will create 26, 27 inches of vacuum. The energy stored in these releasers is what this is called. There's set points in these. Once the sap hits a certain level, it will kick on a pump at the bottom of the releaser, which will send it to our holding tanks. We try to maintain the at least 25 inches. We like it at 27, depending on the time of year. Sometimes that can become a struggle. From the pump house, the maple sap will come into our gathering tanks here at the sugar house now. This is where we will hold the sap. We have 3 tanks setting here to hold. They're 5,400 gallons apiece. We typically like all 3 of them full of sap before we start any of our process of making the actual syrup. Let's just go on a perfect run scenario. The weather's great. We can actually fill these tanks in probably about 4 hours. We can get upwards to around 8,000 gallons an hour. From our gathering tanks, we come into our reverse osmosis room here. What takes place in here is we bring our raw sap into this machine, which has high pressure pumps that will take the sap through, which goes through each one of these membranes down the line. What happens there is, to give you a quick example, the sap is pushed up through the center of the membranes, and the water is pushed through. Sugar won't pass through the membranes in these machines. So you're getting roughly around 70%. So what that means is we're taking our sap from 2% up to 24% prior to boiling. From the reverse osmosis process, once we have our concentrated sap to where our percentages are that we like it, what happens is it comes out from the storage tank that you've seen before, comes into the rear of the evaporator here into a float box, which keeps your depth accurate, consistent. What happens is, as you boil this sap, it will remind you of water more than the table syrup that you see. And as it gets heavier through the boiling process, there's flue pans in the back of this, and it'll push the heavier material towards the front of the evaporator, which comes up to this float box, which will feed the front pans of the machine itself. As you come over here, you can look inside. You'll see each trough on the pan, so it'll start here and it just continuously works up through this machine. What happens is this is an automatic draw for the finishing process. So you can see the numbers. When your top numbers match the bottom, that is your temperature that's set, which we use a hydrometer to set that number at 66 bricks. It automatically starts drawing the syrup off into our draw-off pans. From your automatic draw-off, what happens is it comes into this for holding, and we will add Dalmatius earth into the syrup at this point, mix it thoroughly through. It's less than a cake batter, but it does thicken it up. We have air pumps that draw the syrup from the pan up into your press. There's filter papers in this, and really all they do is trap the Dalmatius earth in these thicker columns, and the Dalmatius earth is actually what does the filtering itself. This is where you will fill the barrels at this point, and it is a finished product now, ready for bottling. From the filter press that we just saw, we come into the finished product now. So in these are all hot packed, is what we call it. So the syrup was freshly off the evaporator into this and sealed as you would in any canning process. So right now we send it into New York, Vermont. There is smaller producers in our area that also have a pretty good market going where they run short. We'll sell those also, some syrup. We'll hold over roughly around 40 barrels throughout the year just for those circumstances, people coming in and needing an actual full barrel of syrup. In front of us here, we've laid out some of the tools that we carry throughout the woods with us. Either for a new install or repairs, just to give you an idea of some of the stuff that we have to cart around in the woods here. This is the small line unspoolers that we have, which makes it handy so one guy can actually string line, where before it took 2 of us to do that. This thing will spin all by itself. We've got some repair tools here. We use this for the 5/16 to put in our spouts and small T connectors. For our larger line, the main lines themselves, we have repair tools because the line is under tension. So what this tool does is actually grips it, lets us be able to cut and put in any fittings that we need or make a repair. So basically we at least have 2 guys in the woods every day when sap is running. And then after any windstorm, basically any storm that may come through, we go through and check for damaged trees, wind damage of any sort. What'll happen a lot of times, it'll actually pull our spouts out of the trees, which causes vacuum leaks. And that's the only way that we can maintain the 25 to 27 inches of vacuum that we look for.
So I wanted to share a little bit about the process about making maple syrup today, and to do so we figured we better start at the tree. This is where it all really does start. We don't just come out to the tree and turn a spigot and get syrup out of the tree. We actually just get sap out of the tree, and that happens just this time of the year, late February in through March, depending on Mother Nature, with freezing nights and thawing days. And the tree is running sap up and down and throughout that tree, kind of getting ready for the next year's growth season. And as it does that, we're going to put a hole in that tree and hang a bucket and collect some of that sap. And that's only about 2% sugar water that's coming out there. We need to concentrate that. All that sugar, though, it isn't just in there, and the tree can't go to the grocery store, I like to tell kids. They can't do that very easily, so they have to get all their sugars from the sun. So we also look for trees that have more branches, more leaves, that in the summertime they can make more sugars from their photosynthesis process, and thus usually will have sweeter sap to flow and to give us easier syrup making capabilities. This one right here is tapped a little bit earlier. You can see it's running right now a little bit. It is in the 30s today. At this rate, it's going to take us a little while to fill that bucket. And a bucket like this might take a day or two to fill. You can fill it in less than a day, but that's an abnormally fast time to fill a bucket. It's actually a lot of work to empty a lot of those buckets, so a lot of producers use tubing lines to do that instead of the buckets. So all of this amazing maple that we're talking about this time of year, it all existed prior to the earliest colonists coming to this part of the world. The Native Americans, for many years, had already been making maple syrup. Their processes were quite a bit different than what we do today, but the end result was similar. They were just getting the water out of there. It was much harder for them to do that. One of the things that made it a lot harder was the fact they didn't have the metals that we have to be able to do this. They had to use wooden troughs, hot rocks, to drop those into those troughs. I just can't imagine how much work that was. It's work today to make the syrup. It was much more work in those days. They had to use larger holes, larger gashes on the tree, and they left larger scars. Because of the lower density of populations and the way their culture moved around more, they were able to do that sustainably. It certainly was an impact on the trees, but it ended up working out. Colonists, the way our towns and cities were, we didn't move enough. We couldn't do that to our trees, so we had to use a much smaller hole. So the holes that you see on here are much smaller in diameter that we use today. They would have used bits and braces. We use cordless drills to tap those holes out today, and some of them on tubing systems are much smaller in diameter, and then they heal up. We like to compare tapping a tree to just like giving blood for us. If you're big enough, old enough, healthy enough, you can give blood. It's really not going to hurt you at all. It's a good thing to do. Just for like the tree. It may not think it's a good thing to give up a little bit of sap, but a little bit of sap isn't going away from that tree isn't going to hurt that. So there's a certain number of buckets, or taps we call that we're going to put on a tree depending on how big it is or how healthy it is. Also somewhat what kind of system you're using to tap, if you're using a smaller tap diameter or not. It's better to be a little safer, in use fewer taps than more taps. It'll be healthier for the tree. And those taps will heal up in as little as a year or two, and they'll be completely sealed Just like your small hole from giving blood, it'll heal up real quick. The tree will heal itself as well.
We call it the Mid-Stafer Sugar Camp. We have 900 taps, 300 is in pails. This year, it's been a pretty good year. We had 163 gallons made so far, even though with the snow, it's been cold. My husband, Len, and my brother-in-law, Clyde, are the main ones that make the syrup. Clyde is a contractor and Len works for the township, so they have their regular jobs, and then they come in here after work at 3 o'clock and get to work, and sometimes they'll boil until 2 o'clock in the morning. Depends on when the sap is running. And we have a tank outside that we put the sap in, and then it comes into this here tank here, which it takes a lot of water out, and then to this one, and then it goes over to the other evaporator over here on the other side, and that's where it's a finish pan. It just naturally flows from one pan to the next until they get to the finish part. When it's ready, they shut the pan off and they let it wait until it gets up to a certain degree, and then they draw it off, and we put it into a milk can that has like a wool bag in it, and strain it through, and once it's all strained, then we take it and we put it into a pan that's on the stove. They heat it to 180 and they can it all up, and it's all done right here in this building itself. Well, we use the 7/16 taps and everything. We use wood fire. We don't have gas or anything like that. My husband and my son, they go out and they cut all year long for the firewood. My husband's father was the one that started this in here. First part was built in the 70s, and then the next part was put on a couple years later when they got a little bit too much sap and got a new evaporator and started. The smaller evaporator down here, that arch is over 70 years old that they figure, because it's been here since 70, and then they had gotten it out of a camp house from somebody else, and they have no idea how old that one is. When we collect, we have a pickup that we dump the sap into 55-gallon barrels, and we have a pump that they pump from into the barrels and out of the tanks and things like that. And we don't have any lines of our own, any trees. We get the sap from other people, and then we give them syrup in return. The maple syrup has been in their family. We have pictures from when his grandparents made it, and we know that it probably went back another generation. So it's been in the Mid-Stafer family for many, many years.
Well, I've been doing it since I was a little kid. 3 generations back, we've been making maple syrup, so it's been in our family a long time. Guess it's in our blood.
I'm here to represent the Tioga and Potter Maple Producers Association. What I do is I'm going to represent North Penn Liberty High School along with 4 other candidates from Tioga County, and what we do is we represent the maple industry. And in May we go to the annual Maple Festival in Coudersport, and we will compete for the title of overall Miss Maple Sweetheart for Tioga County.
This sugar camp is a little bit unique in comparison to, say, all the big producers in northern Tioga County. There's no reverse osmosis. All the water's evaporated right here in these little evaporators. Most of those guys are using reverse osmosis to get their sugar content to like 22%. Some of them are producing almost 120 gallons of syrup an hour. This here you might make 2 gallons an hour if you're lucky. They're using gas or fuel oil to fire their evaporators. This is all fired with wood. That's quite an undertaking to cut enough wood to actually fire these evaporators. I'm a firm believer that the wood fire from the evaporator adds to all the character in your syrup. The syrup stays in the pan a lot longer. Typically a big evaporator reverse osmosis system, it might be in the pan 15 minutes, 20 minutes. It could be in the pan for hours here. All that adds to that flavor. The color, everything's going to be different. Typically their syrup's going to be a lot lighter. They're run through filter presses and stuff like that. This is totally old school, totally old school.
Have you ever been sitting there thinking, man, I wish I could catch fish like these guys in the magazines? Well, I'm here to tell you, you can. I'm Don Kelly, owner of Tackle Shack in Wellsboro. And with a box full of lures like these, the big ones will practically be jumping in your boat. We've got your favorites from Rapala and Strike King, plus the latest and greatest from Storm, Reaction Innovations, Gary Yamamoto, and more. Catching quality fish starts with shopping at a quality tackle store. Catch the big ones this year. Shop at Tackle Shack, Route 287 in Wellsboro, 570-724-5138.
I'm Doug Clark with Asif Maple Farms. I guess we started, I've done it ever since I was a little kid. Everything here used to be the family farm, and my grandpa always made syrup, and from the time I was just little we were always in the sugar house. It was just what we do. Then we got out of it for a long time. After he died, the family quit doing it. We started a little bit in the backyard. One year with like 24 or 25 taps. The next year we had a 4x13 evaporator and 3,000 taps, and we just keep going at it, I guess. Now we're up to a little over 11,000 taps and a 5x16 evaporator, and we make somewhere between 3,000 and 3,500 gallons of syrup a year. Our only special, we do a maple mustard, and we do a maple barbecue sauce. Most of our syrup goes to the bulk market. Probably the bulk of our syrup though goes north to the large packers, and then we do have some stores that we supply. We start in the woods about Christmas time, and we're done about the end of April. Taps pulled and we're done. So it's about 4.5 months, I guess. We started with just an 18 by 24, where the evaporator used to be. That was the original sugar house. And then we added on a lean-to out back with just some tanks on it. And then we eventually closed that in, put a reverse osmosis machine in there, and that was heated. And then in 2012 we added on 32 by 48, which made us 32 by 72 then. Everything's heated. We have a full kitchen, bathrooms. We just keep changing something every year, seems like,
Hi, I'm Christopher Ianson. We're here at Bradonson Farms. We've been doing maple syrup here since the late 1980s. Currently we're on our new sugar house here. We serve pancakes here at the breakfast. We have a wood-fired evaporator here. With this evaporator, we have a back pan, steam away, and we have an RO ahead of it, so we're a little bit more efficient. Currently, we're right about 300 gallons of sap an hour. When we started, we had a line and taps tubing system. All of our taps are on a vacuum system. Currently, we're running right about 8,000 taps here on the farm. It started 7 generations ago. My grandfather got us introduced into it. He was the original, between him and my grandmother were the original owners of the farm here. They've been tapping since they've moved here. All of us grandkids, my dad, uncle, and aunt. So the Maple Festival we've been doing, I believe it's like the 75th, if I'm not mistaken. The Maple Weekend, which is currently this weekend, has been 10, 12 years now. I currently have been doing it since I was 10 years old. So it's been a family tradition passed down.
My name is Jennifer Butler, and I own Butler Family Maple along with my husband. We have 2 children, Jalen and Jana. And we both grew up within a couple miles of this property. It was a century farm, and my husband actually put himself through college selling sap to another neighboring farm, and we got married and moved to Watkins Glen, and a few years later this property came up for sale, so we knocked on the door and bought it in '06. And in '06, the original evaporator was here in this sugar house. It had been sitting dormant for about 20 years, and before children, and with a little extra time, we flipped the pans over, we cleaned them up, and we boiled on the original evaporator right here in the sugar house. Unfortunately, to be inspected and to sell, with the Department of Ag, we had to go make improvements to our equipment and make the pan stainless steel. So we decided to buy a new evaporator that would be a little more efficient and work within our time schedule, as we both work full time and have 2 children now. So we bought our evaporator and boiled on it for the first time in '08. And our philosophy with the maple syrup is we want to love it. So we try to keep it small and kind of fit into our schedule and make it as family oriented as possible. So it is a family business. If you walk around, you'll have my husband's family. His mom is here. My parents are both here, my brothers and sister, and it really is about the values that you grow up with in agriculture. And we both grew up in the dairy industry. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that I could make that work on this property with the amount of money that it would take to get that up and running. But we can still teach our children the same values with this operation, and that's kind of where we started. So not only do we teach them values, but they're right out here with us, and they split wood with us, and they can probably come in and tell you all about the evaporator, and I would just have to sit back because that's the way we do things. It's really a family business for us. We do maple mustard, maple barbecue sauce, candy, maple cream, maple spice rub that you would put like on a meat. Just the maple syrup, of course. My husband likes to play with the confections a little bit. I usually boil the syrup, and he kind of takes care of that value-added product. Most of our product is sold right here out of the sugar house. We do sell a little bit of bulk syrup, but other than that, people contact us, and they come right here to our sugar house to get it. Looking back, it was a little bit daunting, but we just took it one step at a time. Each year, we try to make improvements or upgrades to our equipment and our facility. And we do talk a lot, and we kind of plan out a little bit. But looking back, you sometimes wonder how you made that all work. But we just take it one step at a time and one year at a time, and do what we can. Jody and I would both like to kind of retire with this, so we're trying to be kind of strategic in how we do business here. Oh, well, if you ask my husband the next 5 years, he's thinking about a reverse osmosis machine, more so to save us time and energy with the wood. Our girls are getting a little bit older and are a little active in different organizations, and the wood is a little bit daunting, just getting that ready. But we do like to add a little bit of new equipment each year. If you ask my brother, he's really interested in a cotton candy machine. So it depends on who you ask what perspective you get on what the next 5 years looks like. Oh, our sugar shack is unique because it is the original sugar shack to this farm. We talked a little bit about upgrading and putting a new sugar house. And when you talk to people who come here and spend time with us, they're like, oh, it wouldn't be the same. So you can walk around our sugar house and really see the history and kind of see where it came from. And the old adage, if only walls could talk, I'm sure that we would have novels and novels written right here in the sugar house. So lots of memories are made, lots of friends are made, and that's what's important to us.
My name is Paula Rathbun-Weber. I'm a 5th generation maple producer. Our business is a family-owned and operated business, and it began making syrup on our farm in the late 1860s when my great-great-grandfather Josiah Rathbun came home from the Civil War. We currently use the same sugar bush that he started with back in the 1860s. He actually boiled over an open arc in a flat pan in the woods, no building. And then in the 1930s, they built a sugar house up in that woods. And in the 1950s, my grandfather, who was running the farm at the time, moved the sugar bush down closer to the barn so he could be able to milk cows and start the fire so it would be ready when he was done milking cows. The way we gather sap is certainly different than how it was when Josiah did. He had a neck yoke with 2 buckets hanging on it, which we still have here in the sugar house today. And he burned with wood, and he used a crosscut saw to saw the wood, and we still have that here today as well. When I was a kid with my brother and we helped my grandfather, we used workhorses to gather sap, and then we went to tractors, and today we use vacuum on all of our sap lines. We have approximately 1,000 to 1,200 taps here. Everything is on vacuum, and we can actually, from the woods that Josiah used, is pumped directly here into our sugar house. We have a gathering room where sap comes into, and from there we run it through our reverse osmosis machine, which takes out 75% of the water. So we boil with a sap concentrate. Behind me we have our big evaporator, which is a 4x12, and that takes about 150 gallons to fill it. The little one we have running here today takes about 60. We don't boil our syrup down in the evaporators. We actually put it in our finishing pan, and then we finish it into syrup and then can it. Today my parents still help with us. My brother and I, between us, have 6 kids, and then we have all our grandkids too. In 1997, we decided we'd try to raise honeybees. My husband raises honeybees, and today we have 5 hives. And last year's production was really good with the honey flow. We sell all our products here at the farm, and we have one store in Shingle House that also sells our products for us. We have syrup, maple cream, we do maple coated peanuts and walnuts. My husband has his honey here, and he does lip balm with that sometimes as well. 2 of our daughters represent at Oswego Valley High School is Maple Sweethearts, and my niece is a Sweetheart contestant. Our oldest daughter was the Potter Tioga Sweetheart, and then our youngest daughter also won the same title, and she went on to become the Pennsylvania Maple Sweetheart.
Hello, I'm Glenn Dunn II with Sons of Dunn Family Farm, located here in Coudersport. This is the 13th annual Maple Weekend, part of the Potter Tioga Maple Producers Association. Just wanted to touch base on where this started from. I know Dad and Grandpa did syrup back in the day with some buckets, and that went away, and then got the itch when I was in 9th grade ag class, and that was my SAE project with FFA, and started this and became state agribusinessman in 2006 for PA, and then moved up to the Big Eastern States and competed and placed second back in 06. So I started back in 02 with a 2x6 and a couple hundred taps, and the evaporator sat where the bulk tank sat, and we slowly grew and then became to where we're at now. At full capacity would be around 4,000 taps, 5x14 evaporator, 1,200 gallon per hour RO, and we're ranging anywhere from 400 to 600 gallons of syrup a year depending on the weather. So far off to a good start, and hopefully to finish out a little better. The ribbons you see here placed were the ribbons we received from the farm show this year. First time for us, we placed a couple blue ribbons and many other places in the competition that we entered into, and we were very happy with that. A goal we've been working for a long time is to get a blue ribbon from the farm show. That's the only blue ribbon we haven't got yet, and we succeeded this year.
Hello, Bud Bowers, Brookfield Maple Products. We're located in Brookfield Township, Tioga County, Pennsylvania, right in the northwest corner. We are certified organic maple producers and maple equipment suppliers. We sell lop-ear maple equipment. One of our claim to fame, I guess, would be that we are organic. We are certified organic, which means we have a certified inspection every year. So somebody comes through and they do an audit trail on all of our books. They check our woods, make sure we don't overtap our trees, make sure we don't retap our trees, just making sure that we do everything right. One of the big things with us in the organic is we do sell all of our organic syrup labeled as organic syrup. We try here to not sell a lot of bulk syrup. We like to wholesale and retail the majority of our syrup. This year we've actually had a phenomenal season. So this will be the first year in about 4 or 5 years that we're able to sell some bulk syrup, just because my cold storage room's full and we've got it to sell, so let's make some money this year. One of our improvements that we've done this year is we've added a sugar bush monitoring system, which actually will monitor the vacuum levels on our lines in the woods so that we know if something's gone through the woods, a deer's run through the woods, knocked down lines, trees have fallen due to windstorms, knocked lines down. Instead of me going to the woods and having to walk all of those lines every day, I can now look at the monitoring system and say, hey, line number 13 on the right side, the vacuum's dropped, so that's the only line we have to walk, which I think is going to be a big plus to us once we get everything up and running. We just started with it a week ago, so we're just learning through all the curves now. One of the options that we got on our system is called a tank level system, so I can actually look at my computer screen and know what the sap level is in each one of my tanks. In our sugar bush, we have a big tank that sits up next to the road. It's a 4,500 gallon tank, and then there's a 300 gallon tank that sits at the bottom of the hill. So when the sap comes down off the hill, it goes into the 300 gallon first. When that fills up, there's an electric pump that kicks on, pumps the sap up to my 4,500 gallon tank. That way I know, okay, it's time to go gather sap. Twice this year it's happened to me that my tank has overflowed because I did not know that the sap was running as well as it was, so I didn't get there in time to get my sap. With this new monitoring system, that's definitely going to help us. Right now, matter of fact, it's telling me that my tank at the bottom of the hill actually just pumped up over because it dropped from, it was at 22%, and now I think it's down to 9%. A couple minutes it's going to drop down to 0%. That's telling me that's pumping up over the hill, and my top tank is actually now filled up to 30%. So sap is running now. I can see it running. Now if I go to my transmitters that are on the hill, right now I've just got 6 lines hooked in. Some of those lines are still frozen because they show up in red, so they have no vacuum on them. Some of the lines, 20.6 inches of mercury on one line, 15.8 on the other, and the other one has 0. That's telling me right there that my lines are still frozen up. They haven't thawed out yet today. We're still waiting for that sun to come out and get everything going. If you'd like to learn more about Brookfield Maple Products, we can be found online at www.brookfieldmapleproducts.com. And we're also on Facebook, of course, with the rest of the world, and that's just Brookfield Maple Products.
My name is Jim Tice. Been making maple syrup here. This is our 39th year in this building, and we actually made syrup for our own use as well as hauling sap to a different producer for 10 years before that. So it was 49 years ago that I started in the maple business, and we have always had a wood-fired evaporator about the same size as the one we have now. 4 years ago, after burning wood for 35 years, I got interested in boiling with wood chips. I went to Vermont and talked to a fellow that had built his own wood chip burning system, and I told Dora this was the year to do it. Our wood shed was completely empty, and I started rounding up parts, and most of the parts, except for the wagon, that come from Dora's sister's family farm, and didn't use it anymore, and the rest of the parts pretty much I bought things on eBay there and came up with what I have, and amazingly it worked. I've had to do some refinements on it, but I feed chips into that with a skid steer loader, and right now it's just burning at a slow speed because we don't have sap. We're boiling water, just a demonstration thing. Yesterday it went 8:30 in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon unattended, and I tell people that's the lazy man's way of fixing the wood fire. It's quite an economical, labor-saving way of boiling sap. We get the chips delivered from a local logger that does a lot of chipping, and this year it was kind of a challenge. I wasn't able to get in the woods because of the warm weather. He had a pile of firewood logs that he was able to chip. I sure would hate to go back to cutting and splitting wood. I've heard people say it's either a bad habit or a mental illness, and I think Dora believes me.
Have you ever been sitting there thinking, man, I wish I could catch fish like these guys in the magazines? Well, I'm here to tell you, you can. I'm Don Kelly, owner of Tackle Shack in Wellsboro. And with a box full of lures like these, the big ones will practically be jumping in your boat. We've got your favorites from Rapala and Strike King, plus the latest and greatest from Storm, Reaction Innovations, Gary Yamamoto, and more. Catching quality fish starts with shopping at a quality tackle store. Catch the big ones this year. Shop at Tackle Shack, Route 287 in Wellsboro, 570-724-5138.
My name's Steve Freeman. I work for John Regas. I've been working here for 23 years. We bottle our own syrup, we make it. And, the history, they built this building approximately 20 years ago. We started out with a smaller evaporator. As we got a little bigger, we went bigger with a evaporator. We had 5 bushes running, sugar bushes. Well, we've gone from buckets to tubing, where we're tapped from tree to tree, runs a main trunk line into holding tanks, and we got a reverse osmosis machine that separates sugar from the sap, cuts your boiling time in half. We sell to local stores, grocery stores, restaurants. Once in a while we get a bulk buyer that wants to buy a large quantity of it, and they'll send a truck up and we send it out. Okay, what we got here is a evaporator. It's all stainless steel. It's gas fired. Here's a 5x6. We have a steam away on it. It pushes a lot of syrup through it for its age. It's about 20 years old. Well, some of the older ones, they're all wood fired, and this one here being gas, you can heat it up quicker and you can have a consistent syrup, With our reverse osmosis machine, we can get the sugar content way up high. Cooking time is less. You can get the lighter color syrup. You don't have to cook it as long. It's about half the time.
Richard Patterson has been here on this farm since the early 1920s. He's the 3rd generation. We are working on our 5th generation right now with his granddaughter learning the business. We have 86,000 taps now, 26 different sugar bushes. So we have a lot of tapping to do, a lot of sap that comes through. Last year we had over 1 million gallons of sap come through this sugar house. Selling a lot of our products, some of our new products. We have maple cream, maple candy, and the granulated sugar, which is a huge success this year. We have a brand new group that's gotten into our sugar. Our children who are allergic to corn products, they're able to use our maple syrup and our maple sugar. And our packaging doesn't have any kind of corn derivative to it, so they're able to have that. Plus our extra value products, maple fudge, our barbecue sauce, salad dressing, maple mustard, are all for sale on all year long. Showing off our brand new equipment. We've got a new RO that we can do a lot more sap with, 7,000 gallons of sap per hour, and we can get it up to about 22%. So that means that we can make syrup a lot faster. About 3 55-gallon drums of syrup per hour. Season has been very good this year. We started out very early. Right now, it's been the last week and a half or so, it's been too cold. But with this really cold snap, we think we're going to start up again, and the trees will be jump-started, and we'll be back making syrup for maybe another week or 2.
Good morning from Sticky Bucket Maple. I'm Brian Warwick and
Wanda.
We're owners here at our beautiful sugar shack in Potter County, Hector Township. We have approximately 12,000 taps We actually started off with 400 with a small gas-powered vacuum on top of the hill here. And it ran down to the road where we collected the sap and sold it to our friend Richard Patterson, who actually helped me get involved in this. And from then on, it was we went from 400 to 4,000, and we've been doing this since '08, and we are up to 12,000 taps, as I said. And we put a brand new addition on 2 summers ago, and loving every minute of it. And we have a fabulous product line and really good syrup. Brian Ianson, who helped me out a lot getting involved, saw the Sugar Shack when I first put it up, and he suggested that I go on the tour because he loved the quaintness of it, the way it was built into the mountains and the serenity around here. And he actually brought a tour bus up here, and that's how we got involved. And he, highly recommended us being on the tour, and we have a lot of fun with it. It's a lot of work to get ready, but when we're doing it and when it's over, we're really glad we did it. A lot of nice people stop by, and it's nice for people who appreciate this as much as we do. We carry probably a line of 8 to 10 products. The maple candy, the sugar. We have our own maple granola that's we have produced with our syrup, pancake mixes, cream. The process of getting it set up was just a matter of having a building big enough to handle equipment. And as we've grown bigger, we needed larger equipment, more capacity of equipment to handle, several, thousands of taps. A difference in our operation is the far end of the property, it's about 283 acres, is a hollow where we have a pump house that it's almost 4/5 of a mile that we pump sap over across the top of the farm and down into our tanks in the corner down here. We're probably one of the only few sugar shacks that don't actually have to truck any of our sap. So that's a big plus when you don't have to haul anything.
My name is Larry Hamilton, and we're at Hamilton's Maple Products today. This is our open house weekend, and yesterday we had 199 meals served, and the waitresses were tired when they went home last night. I am 5th generation maple producer in the Hamilton family. My twin brother lives on the family farm, and it was a century farm in 1972. Many years ago, I had family members that came here and settled, and I still have some of the original maple equipment that they used. The old dirt floor sugar house that they built and made syrup in is where I started out making syrup before we moved to this facility. Product-wise, we make pretty near every product that they've come up with yet with maple syrup. The pure products are typically made from maple syrup without adding anything. The first product in line is maple cream. Maple cream, you take syrup at correct density, you put it back on the stove, and you cook it to 232 degrees. And then you crash cool it, and once it's cold, you stir it. And we have a cream machine that's designed to do that for us. In fact, at 10 o'clock last night, we were making cream for our inventory today. After cream, you can take more syrup, put it on the stove, and you can make molded candy by just simply cooking it 10 degrees hotter to 232 to 235. You can have syrup that will actually solidify into molded candy. And the third and final product that's made from pure maple syrup is maple crumb sugar. Maple crumb sugar is the sweetener, the sugar from the tree with all the water taken out of it. You put it on the stove and you cook it to 260 degrees, and you take it off the stove and stir it, and all the water will steam away, and you end up with a crystallized crumb sugar, and it's very similar to brown sugar in color. From that, we go into value-added products. We make maple mustard. It's a sweetened mustard. It's very simple to make. We make maple sweetened barbecue sauce. It's a very nice smoky barbecue and sweet maple flavor blended together. Those are two of our very hot sellers. But probably the hottest seller and the most coveted product in the maple industry is maple cotton candy. Now at the farm show this year, we broke a new record and we made over 6,000 bags of maple cotton candy. Now down at the farm show, we have an audience that comes for maple cotton candy. We've had people come in and say, I'm a maple cotton candy connoisseur, and I've had cotton candy all around the world, and yours is the best. So the next time you get the opportunity to find maple cotton candy, don't walk away. You better take it with you. Here at Hamilton's Maple Products, I had a dream many years ago of turning my sugar house into a pancake house. So 5 years ago, we officially opened as a licensed restaurant under the Department of Agriculture, and we've been doing pancakes on the weekend now for 5 years. We run a seasonal business here. This year we opened Thanksgiving weekend, and we sold Christmas trees and wreaths to Christmas, and then we continued on through January and February into the sap season. We won first place this year, or Best of Show Syrup. And that's what we serve on our pancakes here at Hamilton's Maple Products. So come on in and see us.
My name is Dale Miller. I'm here at Miller's Purely Maple, and my wife and I have been making syrup commercially for 22 years. And we got into the business because we were too cheap to buy our syrup. And I told my wife, I said, why would we buy syrup when we can make our own? So the first year we got a pan and we got a few buckets, and we stood outside and we made a few gallons of syrup, and we were tickled to death because we had made our own syrup. And my wife, she enjoyed making the products from the maple syrup, the maple candy and cream, and the different things that you can make from maple. That really fascinates us, how you can take one product and make different products that are spreadable, moldable, or shake it on or whatever. And so I said, well, if you're interested, we'll go a little bigger. And I came home one night and she was real excited. She found in the paper where a farmer was retiring and selling his equipment. So we went and looked at it, and make a long story short, we bought it and we got into making maple syrup. And in the 22 years that we've been making it commercially, we've learned a lot. We've learned the different types of trees that we tap, how the sugar content. We like to tap trees that have lots of limbs. They produce the best sugar. The sugar content is high. We have land that we're working that my father bought back in 1940. And I have since then, after he has passed away, has bought my interest out of my brothers and sisters. And so on our 570-acre farm, we tap about 7,000 trees, producing up around a couple thousand gallon of pure maple syrup every year. The venture that we have had making maple syrup has been really an exciting one. We've gone from, as I said before, producing a few gallons for our own use in the backyard, into the business that we have today. We retail most of our syrup, selling it here in our store locally. Maple Weekend is something we always look forward to, enjoying meeting and interviewing many of the people who come into the area to see how maple syrup is made. But one of the highlights that we have is we have a concession trailer, and we spend several days a year at the Pennsylvania Grand Canyon meeting the tourists there and putting real maple in our mouth. And that's really our goal, is to put real maple products in people's mouths and show them what we think is the maple tree is unique in its creation, and the fact that it produces sugar. Not only does it produce sugar, but when that is turned into syrup, it has a flavor that many people find enjoyable. We make many different types of maple products. Of course, the pure maple products, we make the maple syrup. The next step we make is maple cream. We cook that up a little higher, we cool it, we stir it. Then we make the maple candy. The maple candy is moldable. We cook that up higher yet to take out more water. We cool it not quite so far, and then pour it into a trough that has a worm in it that stirs it, and pour it into molds, and that's moldable. And then we make the crumb sugar, which is very similar to brown sugar, which people use for baking and toppings and different things like that. And then after we go by that area, there's really no limit to the amount of things that we do. My wife makes marshmallows, she makes barbecue sauces, she makes mustards. She makes several different types of rubs that we have that you can use on vegetables and meats. We do toppings for ice cream and all sorts of things. And I think we make over 30 different products using the maple in some aspect. And we like to show people, or we like people to see that maple syrup isn't just for pancakes anymore, but it's something that can be incorporated in many areas of your life, and you can use it in all aspects in your diet and in your cooking. And we like to show people that, hey, a dish of vanilla ice cream and a little maple syrup on it certainly brings out uniqueness in it, or a maple syrup, maple shake that has maple syrup in it. We find that people like that. One of the favorites we have at the Canyon, we cook our maple hot dogs in maple syrup. And people oftentimes come up to us wanting to know if they can buy some of our hot dogs. And we say, well, they're just an ordinary hot dog, but we cooked them in maple syrup. And we tell them how they can do that so they can treat their family to a special treat some night during the week. My favorite part about the maple business is what I just experienced here today, and it's meeting hundreds of people that come through, that talk and ask us how we do it, and they get a chance to taste the sap, and they don't realize it looks like water. And we've been joking here this morning. People say, "Oh, that isn't how I pictured it. I didn't realize it was just looks like water." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "You're used to seeing those ads that they just put the tap in the tree and they run it in the jug." And I said, "That's real fake news there. That's not exactly how it happens." So I guess I'd have to say my favorite part is just interacting with the people and seeing their faces light up when you put real maple in their mouth, and seeing the kids when they come through and have a chance to tap a tree and experience all of that.
I'm Maria Gibble. I am a 7th generation maple producer, and right here my niece Riley May, she is our 8th generation. And she's going to be our next future maple sweetheart.
We just enjoy it, even the worst time of the weather, working in the woods, the deep snow. We really enjoy the maple syrup business.
Have you ever been sitting there thinking, man, I wish I could catch fish like these guys in the magazines? Well, I'm here to tell you, you can. I'm Don Kelly, owner of Tackle Shack in Wellsboro. And with a box full of lures like these, the big ones will practically be jumping in your boat. We've got your favorites from Rapala and Strike King, plus the latest and greatest from Storm, Reaction Innovations, Gary Yamamoto, and more. Catching quality fish starts with shopping at a quality tackle store. Catch the big ones this year. Shop at Tackle Shack, Route 287 in Wellsboro, 570-724-5138.